This program contains adult content.
Is there a God?
Big atheist.
Really?
What, am I, an idiot? Come on.
That yes, it would be nice if you could throw your sins and your responsibilities on someone else. But it's not true.
It looks like far-left lunacy.
I don't believe that it's true that religion is moral or ethical.
You don't need to follow anybody!
It's not human intelligence!
If someone doesn't value logical consistency, what logical argument are you going to give them that will demonstrate that they should?
Hello and welcome to the Godless Rebelution. Today is Wednesday, October 10th. This is episode 223. I'm getting more fuzzy all the time, but now Shawn has the much larger beard in studio.
Yep.
Yes.
I feel very honored.
I'm Dan Ellis, one of the co-hosts of the show, joined in studio by Ron Duffy.
I'm here again this week.
Ron Duffy.
Ryan.
Yeah. Ryan?
That was my little southern twang a little bit. Ryan and Mr. Matt Mitchell.
I am here.
And we have in studio with us Mr. Shawn McCraney.
Yes. Great to be here.
Very excited to have you in studio with us, man.
Thanks, Dan.
I've been really looking forward to doing this show with you.
I have too.
So ordinarily we start out the show with like what we've done over the last week and everything. I just want to skip all of that and get right into talking to you because I have here prepared a list of
oh boy.
Don't be worried.
I have a list of 34 primary questions and then there are sub questions within there and I'm sure we'll touch maybe 5 or 6 of them total. So
whatever it is.
But so I wanted to get right into this. So tell us a little bit about yourself. To start out with, like, what are you doing now these days? Introduce us. If you were to just meet us on the street and say, I'm Shawn McCraney, this is what I do, what would you say?
I'd say I run a small, never-denominational church with a streaming weekly, couple streaming shows to people we are seeking truth about God from a biblical perspective that resist tradition, resist organized religion, and with the focus of being to love everybody no matter what their beliefs are, which is why I have love for Dan, Ron, and Matt automatically.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your early life. So I still haven't done a whole lot of research on you because I didn't want anything to taint my view of anything. I want to know what you think from you and why. So tell us a little bit about your early life. I know that you, like, initially I thought that you must have been born and raised here in Utah, but that's apparently not the case.
No. Born in Southern California, parents from Southern California, grandparents from LA, and my parents joined the Mormon church before I was born. Converted. I was raised in it. I was rebellious, loved the dances, loved the Mormon good-looking girls. Got disfellowshipped when I was 18 for sexual immorality.
Oh, no.
They wanted to excommunicate me, but my mom threatened them that if they did, she would walk with the whole family. So I saw politics at play right then and there. I only deserved disfellowshipment. Went on a Mormon mission. Pennsylvania, came back, married my wife sitting here in the LA temple, raised 3 daughters, and just started to kind of deconstruct. Love punk music, still love punk music. I'm sold out punk and metal, and that's just my makeup.
I wouldn't have guessed that by looking at you.
Yeah, I know. I have the missionary look. Yeah. So I'm just a seeker. I was always seeking, and I really became kind of a nihilist. When I was a Mormon, I was in positions, but I was still just pretty godless. And I was, going out on my wife and, taking hydrocodone, after, priesthood. And I was just kind of really, can I swear on this show?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I was pretty fucked up as a human being, and I couldn't get it with the whole Mormon thing. I just really tried, but it just didn't work. So I had a roadside experience. I'll go into it if you want for, whatever, but I had a roadside experience that changed my life, and I came to understand God in a different way. And that launched me from being a stockbroker for 13 years to, leaving Mormonism, leaving that, and just going into, ministry. So there's the nutshell.
Can I ask before we jump into that, what was it? Because I think we can find a lot of common ground, because I was raised in the LDS church. So was Dan.
Mm-hmm.
What things you found that weren't working for you, with the reasons you split? I know there's going to be a ton of reasons now, but
mainly their structure of what I needed to do and what I needed to be did not change my heart. I outwardly could conform, but inwardly I was just a fucker. And I mean, bottom line, that's what I was. And I didn't like it. I don't like the hypocrisy. I can either be a fucker or I can not be, and I couldn't not be, so I couldn't be Mormon anymore. It was really an inconsistency between who I was interior and what they expected of me on the exterior.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. How about you?
I always struggle. I mean, I struggled with the Jesus story, but I really could never get on board with the Joseph Smith story.
Oh,
that just never made sense to me. I mean, there's just too many issues right from the beginning with, all of his witchcraft and occultism and everything else.
So aside from not being able to be, I don't know, a faithful, true believing, very pious LDS boy, were there any points of doctrine or scripture that you had issue with, or
not originally? I wasn't a real thinker. I wasn't at all articulate at that age. I was just more of, Spicoli. I really was. And I've grown into some
Southern California surfer dude.
That's what I was.
Oh, yeah?
There's no, that's not an exaggeration. And so where, like, Matt, you probably were thinking more, and you're like, Jesus, Joseph, come on. I bought the story. I thought, but it just didn't have any application for me. Yeah.
Well, the Mormon culture in Southern California is way different than the Mormon culture here in Utah.
It is. Yeah.
And the Mormon culture in Salt Lake is different from in Orem, where I live.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
Well, and I've already gotten off my little prepared thing here, but I wanted, so right out of the gate too, I wanted to say, or close to the gate now that we're well past it, but
the 50-yard line.
So there's 4 of us on the mics right now. I want to make sure that, we don't interrupt each other too much, try to keep that to a minimum. And I understand that you're here walking into the lion's den. There's 3 atheists here. You're the lone Christian guy here. And so we're going to try to not beat up on you too badly.
Thanks.
And I'm hoping this is just a amiable, friendly discussion about what you believe and why and how you came to believe those things.
But I do want you to throw your hardest stuff, and you can be critical of the beliefs, because I don't think you're critical of me. I can take criticism of the beliefs. You can mock God and whatever you want, because you have that right. And if you can't freely express it, how will I ever know what you really think? So I don't think you're ever going to attack me. So I understand.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and that's funny. You said we can mock God and whatever. When American Atheists had their convention here in Salt Lake, I organized mass resignation from the LDS Church ahead of the American Atheists conference or convention here. And we're walking around, we do our little thing at the park, and we had Dave Silverman give a speech. I spoke for a little while. Dave Silverman gave a speech, and then we marched around Temple Square and then had everybody deposit their resignation letters in a mailbox just up the road. But as we're walking around Temple Square, there were some wild things that happened. First, they had a bunch of LDS people lining both sides of the sidewalk on one particular stretch, and they were singing hymns and praying for us. They made what they called a love corridor that we had to walk through as we're going around Temple Square. And it was kind of funny, but also kind of heartbreaking. Like some of the women standing in line singing and praying were just in tears that, all of these people that are walking around are going to be leaving the church. And she was just so distraught. But we get to one corner, and I don't know if you've seen this guy out there, but he's whenever general conference is going on or there's something happening downtown, this guy stands on the corner and he's got this big sheep's horn or ram's horn that he blows. And so he sees this big group of people marching, and we've all got our signs and everything, leaving the LDS religion and leaving the LDS church. And so we get up to where he is, and he's all excited initially. He's like, "Oh, yeah, you guys are leaving the LDS church? Yeah, because it's total bullshit. And I'm glad that you guys finally know that." And then he sees that some of us are wearing like atheist shirts and stuff like that. And he's like, "Oh, wait, no, you guys are atheists? No, God will not be mocked. God will not be mocked. He starts screaming at us and blowing his horn. He's like, you're all going to burn in hell and God will not be mocked. And we're like, we kind of mock him like every day. That's kind of our thing.
Wow. Yeah.
It was just wild. Like he was all on board with us leaving the church. Then he's like, oh, no, wait, no, you're the wrong kind of people who leave the church.
That's hilarious.
So what was this roadside experience that you had?
Well, I was driving. I was pretty messed up, and I just happened to turn on a radio. A guy named Charles Stanley asked a question. He said, if you could get yourself right before God, why haven't you done it? That was the question. And because I had been LDS and done the mission, the temple marriage and everything, and I had really tried. And so I listened to what he said. And he said, the reason you haven't done it is because you can't do it. It's impossible. And I hadn't heard that message before. So I listened to him. And in the end, he just said, hey, ask God to come into your life and turn yourself over to Jesus and let him step in and become the Lord of your life. And so I did it and nothing happened. And I went and picked my daughters up from gymnastics practice. But by the end of that day, I had miraculously had a change of heart. And there's all sorts of responses as to what that is. William James wrote a book on religious variations where Muslims and Hindus and Buddhists and Christians all have born again experiences. So it's not endemic to Christianity, but all I can say is that it changed me from the inside. And from that point forward, I still have great moments of fuckery, but I do have an overall love for people that I didn't have before. So because of that, that is what's motivated me to do what I do and why I kind of stand on it, regardless of whether people agree or not.
So are your parents still in the church?
Are
they still around? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Most siblings still in, most active or two or three active, mom active. Dad's an atheist though.
Oh yeah.
You'd like him. Yeah.
Oh wow.
He left the Mormon church and he says he is. I don't know, but he goes back and forth. Yeah.
Goes back and forth on whether he's an atheist or not.
It depends on how he's feeling that day. With his lumbago, he starts talking about God, but I don't know about him.
And how are they? Well, how did so your mother's still in the church?
Yeah.
That's got to be rough on her, knowing that without your father, she'll never make it to the celestial kingdom.
Yeah, yeah. It troubled her, but, she's more a liberal Mormon. Mm-hmm. And that probably had an effect on me, too. She doesn't really do the Joseph Smith thing like Matt was talking about. And so she was just more, it's good for the family. Don't take this too seriously, but she uses it to her advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think most people do.
Yeah.
They take what suits them and kind of disregard a lot of the rest.
Yeah. More of a cultural and social group.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I've mentioned it on the show a few times. My very pious, very true believing LDS grandmother, if she's not in church on Sunday, it's because she's in Wendover gambling. So.
That's awesome.
But she still won't drink coffee.
Yeah.
She did for a little while, but she won't drink coffee anymore. But she'll still go to Wendover and do some gambling.
Isn't it fascinating?
Oh,
it's just fascinating where you'll draw your lines,
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure she in her own mind thinks, well, this is, I'm not hurting anybody. I'm entertaining myself and, I have a fun time doing this and what's the harm here? And it's like, well, sure. But then what's the harm with premarital sex? That's a consenting thing between two adults, usually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, drinking coffee, well, that's just purely your own decision.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's weird how people draw some of those lines to me.
It is so. It's like when I was at BYU, I remember working at a department store and there was a couple there and they had attended the temple and they were wearing garments and you made a covenant not to have sexual intercourse, but they felt anal sex was okay. So
it's the poop hole loophole.
The poop hole loophole. I knew I'd get some new phrases if I walked into this den of iniquity. And so they practiced the poop hole loophole. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's all kinds of tricks at BYU to get around it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Soaking, floating.
Yeah, I'm like we could probably spend a whole hour on stuff we've heard.
Bagpiping.
Bag?
Oh, yeah.
They go here.
Oh.
Right in the armpit area.
Yeah.
Mary, don't get me ideas. I'm getting older, man. I can't keep up with all this stuff.
So how did the rest of your immediate family take you leaving the church?
Well.
Were they all very into the church?
Yeah, I had a brother who he died. He committed suicide before this happened. So, but my younger brother is the consummate LDS keeper of the law, and it's always been tough ever since with him.
Yeah,
we try, but it's just brutal.
Yeah.
So he really was affected most.
Yeah. So you had this roadside experience. Was it an immediate thing? Like you just took your garments off, said, I'm done. I'm going to start my own church, do my own thing. How did you go from being in the LDS church and then having this roadside experience to, well, now I'm going to start a church?
You know, I decided I didn't think any of the other religions were true. And I had been tainted against, you know, like Christianity from the temple film and stuff. I just knew I had come to discover God in a different way. I thought other Mormons had too. So I started writing a book, and I wrote a book called Born Again Mormon. And, that's what launched, me. Somebody up here heard about it. I got an invitation. I didn't have a desire to start a church or anything else. I just wrote that book, and I got invited to be on a television show here in town. I flew up here. I did the show, and the show usually had 3 calls, and we had like 112. Oh, wow. And the owner of the station said, after a week, do you want your own show? And so we, you know, we hadn't done TV or anything, but we said, sure. And so that's what started the whole ministry, is that I started flying up here every week doing the show.
Was that 1.0?
That was 1.0. Good job, Ron. Yeah. And 1.0s are still out there. There's like 600 or 400 of them, and people watch them all over the world and still write about Mormonism. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So what? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I just want to nip this real quick. So when we introduced ourselves, I was making fun of Dan, and I was calling him Ron because of the way he said it, but his name's actually Ryan, just so you know.
Oh, Ryan! Yeah. I'm so sorry. I am sorry.
It was totally my fault. It was the way that I said it right at the beginning.
And I kicked it all off by calling you Ryan.
Yeah. Ryan. And I'm just too nice. I just go, okay, you can call me Ron.
But Dan didn't even seem to care one way or the other.
You probably didn't notice.
I'm like, well.
That's how much they care about me.
He's not calling me Don, so.
As long as I move these buttons in the right direction, that's all they care about.
Well, he's not calling me Don, and I'm sure Ryan won't care if he's called Ron.
Ryan,
he'll just accept that as his new name.
Well, mostly I go by Duffy, but we just kind of call me by my first name on here. Yeah.
Huh. Duffy is what your friends call you?
Well, I was military, so we always went by our last name. So when people usually say Ryan in a crowd, I don't respond.
Yeah. All right.
So you started a ministry. Well, and now that we're talking about the 1.0 versus 2.0, I was wondering about that also. So you currently do a show called Heart of the Matter 2.0. What was 1.0, and what's the difference between the two?
1.0 went from March of 2006 to the first week of 2013. It was weekly. It was live. It went throughout the state, a full power television station. It was live call-in.
Oh, wow.
And the topic was all Mormonism versus what I thought was biblical Christianity. And it was very combative, and it was highly entertaining when the LDS people would call in thinking, I've got the zinger to get this guy, you know. So that really, I mean, we were getting, you know, 10,000 emails a week.
Oh, wow.
And someone overseas decided to put those things on something called the internet with YouTube. And that's how we got legs. Well, in December of 2012, I went around to the Christian churches with my wife to see what they were all about. We hadn't visited them. We didn't really attend a Christian church. And it was such a frickin' show and such bullshit that we did a show on the 1st of January in 2013 and said, we're not picking on the Mormons anymore. We're going to give the Christian churches the same amount of attention that we've given Mormonism. And within 5 days, Greg Johnson, who's running for the House seat, I think now in this state, had me off the air, led all the evangelicals in a march to get me right off.
Oh.
Yeah. So the Mormons, they let me stay for 7 full years attacking them. 1 week of attacking the Christians,
you're gone.
Boom.
So how does that happen? I mean, how does he control your, or was it It wasn't your television.
No, it's not my
right?
station.
Okay.
Yeah, the station was owned by evangelical Christians.
Oh.
Yeah. And when they heard,
and so they're totally happy with you picking on the LDS church.
Totally.
Yeah, man, I see that shit as an atheist all the time. Like, especially to a lot of my friends and acquaintances that I've known for years and years. Like, as long as I'm picking on the LDS church, everything is fair game. Oh yeah, Mormons are stupid and what they believe is crazy and weird and yeah, it's a cult and blah, blah, blah. And then I'll say, oh yeah, and the Catholic church is bullshit too because of this. And I was like, hey, wait a minute now.
Oh yeah.
Don't talk about the Catholic church like that. We can't be friends anymore.
Yeah. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, just rank hypocrisy. Like, oh yeah, religion is stupid if it's a Mormon religion, but if it's something I believe, then I don't want you to say anything bad about it.
Yeah. Yep. And Mormonism is low-hanging fruit. I mean, you can go up to and hit softballs all day against Mormonism.
Well, so is Catholicism.
It is. And and Christianity too, really, in so many ways. So
you said earlier that you're anti-denominational?
Yeah, definitely.
I think you said never-denominational.
Never-denominational, yeah.
What is
so that's actually the first time I've heard that term used. I've heard non-denominational or whatever.
I kind of created it.
That's what I was kind of thinking. Can you just kind of elaborate on what you...
Well, it extends deeper than that, Ron. Duffy. No, it is really that brick and mortar religion, institutional religion in and of itself is antithetical to Christ, to the message he gave in my estimation. And so it was never about a building. Okay. Men took it over, hijacked it. So it's not just never denominational. It's just not. And we call our studio a studio church, but we don't have membership. We don't do, you have to come. We don't care what you dress like. We don't care what your lifestyle is. We don't care what your beliefs are. So they have taken it and corporatized it and institutionalized it and made it a system to follow. And we're totally against that. Yeah. And we use the Bible to prove how that was never the case.
Okay. That's kind of like my other question, like how you, cause it seemed like, cause we're very anti-establishment of religion, very full-heartedly. Well, I myself am more like, if you want to believe
for yourself, I guess.
That's what I said. That's what I said. Like me as myself, I'm like, if someone wants to believe in something, as long as it doesn't harm someone else or doesn't cause them to do something that is harmful towards themselves, okay, I can let it live.
Yeah.
But as far as the organization itself, I'm kind of like, well, you're the ones that are putting some horrible thoughts in some people's heads.
Yeah.
Especially with the LDS Church this last weekend with their they're very homophobic stuff, their anti-trans message they're giving out. I'm like, that's a horrible message to give out, especially in a state where we have some of the highest suicide rates. And no, it's not because of the elevation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, and the suicide rate kicks up every 6 months around general
whenever they spew this stuff out.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's where I stand. So that's where I was kind of like, the same people that you're kind of against as far as the organizational religion still use the same text. And I know a lot of people use the same text and have different interpretations on it. So I didn't know how that still worked a little bit, being able to use the same Bible that they use.
It's a long story. It really is. I don't know if you want to get into it, if you choose to.
Well, which version of the Bible do you use?
It doesn't matter. We use any one. I use the King James because I was LDS and I understand that one better. But I went to one kind of segue in between me, that Roadside experience and coming to Utah, is I attended a theology school for about 2 years full time. And so I was able to understand how to learn.
As a fucker?
The Greek, as a real fucker. Yes. And that school was full of fuckers. And, so I learned the Greek, how to do a little bit of that. And so, whatever Bible, they all have problems. There's no epistemus verba. It's not word perfect. They have issues but generally as a reference source, whatever you're going to read, fine. Yeah.
So it's very loose, this whole
very
thing.
Loose.
Yeah. I think you should have went with Shawn denominational.
Shawn it would suddenly become not loose anymore.
Right.
Yeah. Great idea, though.
Well, and did I hear you say that you were a stockbroker for 13 years?
Yeah.
And just decided, I'm leaving that all behind.
Yeah. Well, I was pretty miserable in that. That led to, it's really a miserable job. And, I'm not a real salesperson on something I don't believe. So I did it to try to have benefits and bring some money in. And it was always pressure. And so just, I left it because not only because I hated it, but I also knew I should pursue this thing that I now do.
Well, I watched Wolf of Wall Street over the weekend.
Oh, gosh.
That movie's fucking wild. But when you were talking about, you know, popping pills and everything, and then I heard stockbroker, I was thinking, oh, well, maybe the one goes with the other or not. I don't know.
You should. I know it's a little sidetrack. I do this all the time. Go on YouTube and find it because he does motivational speaking now, and he tells the actual real stories. The actual real Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh yeah.
The real life guy tells stories.
Wow.
They are much crazier than the movie. Much crazier. Like, holy cow, I can't believe this guy lived.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the movie was wild enough for me that I just am. Tracy and I were watching it just like, holy shit.
He did
I can't believe people actually do this kind of shit.
He did a whole hour-long talk on the phases of Quaaludes and what you do during them.
Yeah.
And it was interesting.
Well, yeah, there's a couple scenes in the movie where he's talking about Quaaludes and does Quaaludes, and you know, he wrecks his Lamborghini.
Well, this one here, he's talking about taking his $1 billion yacht into a hurricane while on Quaaludes.
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
And sinking it and throwing his helicopter overboard.
Oh, yeah, that's in the movie, too. Yeah.
I was not that kind of, I was much lower class. The women surrounding me were, you know, 450 plus. No.
So what does campus stand for?
It stands for, it started off as Christian anarchists meeting to prayerfully understand scripture. That's the acronym.
Okay.
But then we turned it to any A word possible. We've done a little blip
Christian
on our thing. Asses. We had asses in there.
Christian atheist?
You know, if that's your A word, bring it, brother. Architects, artists, you know, whatever. But anarchist was the original.
So do you have any regular job now, or is it just ministry full time?
It's all ministry.
Is it?
Yeah. It's been full time since 2009.
Wow.
And so does your church just accept donations, or how does that?
We do not preach them. We don't say pass the plate. We don't say there's a donation box in the back. It's if you want to contribute, do it.
You're not Joel Osteen showing up to church in a Ferrari.
No. And I mean, for transparency, last year I made 24 grand. So, you know, my wife works now, and her parents passed away, left us a little bit of money. And so that helped and things like that.
Yeah.
It's not a money gig. It could be if I turn into Shawn.
Oh, well, yeah. That's, they always say one of the quickest ways to become rich is to start your own church.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you're really beating that drum of you need to give me money or to get right with God and receive his blessings, the whole prosperity gospel.
Oh, yeah. It's horrible. Yeah. Horrible.
Well, I'll say right off the bat, you're more ethical than all those prosperity gospel guys.
All right. Thanks, Ryan.
You're okay in Ron's book. So what are the major differences between your current theological beliefs and those of the LDS Church?
The LDS?
Yeah.
Well,
so I'm guessing you don't believe that Joseph Smith was a prophet of God and had his first vision and all of that, or do you? I don't know.
No, I think Joseph Smith probably started off with some good intentions, and I think that girls and gold and glory got in the way, and he did what everybody does who get in that position, you know, and he started marching around, became king of the world, and he went south, you know. But I think he could have started off with some good intentions. I don't know. I think that theologically, I'm so far afield from them, but I am so far afield from most evangelicalism and most Catholicism. So I'm far afield from all of their takes on it. So to me, a Mormon who is committed and they are kind and good, they're as valuable as a Baptist or even a Hindu. If they love, that's the qualifier for me. If they love, they are my brother, you know, and I'll let God figure out all the theology. Yeah.
So you say it's that your church is non-denominational, but it is Christian centric, right?
Yeah. I teach the Bible every week. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know how to ask this question necessarily, but if you were to compare the teachings in your church to any other denomination? I mean, is there anything out there that even comes close as far as being Christian anarchists?
Well, Jacques Ellul was a guy. Leo Tolstoy was a Christian anarchist, but so principally from them. But I think I can make it easier because it isn't readily understood, Dan. And the best way to understand the difference between what we do at campus and what all the other places do is we believe that the faith is subjective and not objectively delivered. That means that I can get up and say, you know, it says here that Jesus rose from the grave on the third day. It's up to you to subjectively decide what you think of that, believe in that, reject it. That's between you and your maker, not between me telling you that's what you have to believe. So our view is that the faith has been entirely subjective since Christ died. It is up to the individual. They say, no, there are objective laws that must be accepted for you to be considered his or not. And I say, no, I don't think that's the case at all. And they'll say, well, where do you draw the line? We don't draw the line.
So you don't draw the line like at all? Like, what if somebody were to say, well, yes, I'm a Christian, but I'm a Christian anarchist. So I'm a Christian who doesn't believe that Christ ever existed.
Yeah.
I don't believe that in the crucifixion and resurrection, redemption through Christ. I don't believe in any of that, but I still call myself a Christian.
That's between you and God. I cannot discern your heart. And then often what people say, I'm not a Christian or I am a Christian, sometimes it has to do with how that's been defined. So what's in their heart?
And everybody defines that differently.
Right.
You know, a lot of the evangelical Christians would say that Mormons aren't Christians.
A lot of them.
There's a big argument and discussion about that, and always has been.
Right. So to me, the solution to the infighting and the rancor between the sex is I can never say it. I think it's from my childhood. Sex is subjective Christianity, but it makes people go apeshit. They can't handle it. The pastors cannot handle it. No, you are, and I think that it is clearly taught in the scripture. So
you think what's clearly taught in the scripture?
Subjective faith. Yeah.
Oh, that it's up to each individual just to decide on how they want to interpret various passages within the Bible and incorporate those into their own lives.
Yeah. And it comes down to a big word, and you may know it, and it's called eschatology. And so the eschatological positions of the churches, which means what do the end times look like? That's where the rub comes into play. Because if you believe that what Jesus established and did is still going on, and he still has some church, and we're still trying to wait for him to come back and take it, then you should be following the Bible and its edicts closely. But if he came back as he promised he would, and he did what he said he was going to do, the Bible tells us that in that day, when that has all happened, everything else becomes, it's just over. We're in a different age, completely different age. So I'm not alone in this. I didn't create this. There are other Christians who eschatologically are called full preterists, and that's what I am. I believe all of that Bible stuff has been completed.
Full predator?
Yeah, no, yeah, I know. I shouldn't have said it. I knew.
No, I'm not familiar with the preterist.
Yeah, full preterist, and preterist is a Latin term that means end the completion, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a new term to me. I haven't heard that one before, and I like to think that I'm pretty up on religious teachings and thought, but I've never heard that term before.
Yeah. So that's,
or maybe I haven't just glossed,
You may have said, they said pederast or pedophile.
I've heard those ones.
Yeah.
Those are big in the Catholic
Not
church.
surprising that Ryan's heard those. With that mustache and all the hanging around the parks that you do.
I do good stuff.
Oh my.
I know, you obey your restraining orders.
I don't have a restraining order.
I know. These are all jokes.
So we did have some listener questions. The first one comes to us from Andrew Vodopich, and he says, I'd be curious to find out just how much of the Bible he feels can be disregarded while still calling oneself a Christian or claiming that it is from God. Granted, everyone feels that their own interpretation is the correct one, but is there a line that he feels cannot be crossed when diverging from the actual words of the Bible?
And no. And here's why. In that schematic that we talked about of full preterism, there's a scripture in the Old Testament, and it's echoed twice in the New Testament, where God says, if you want to believe this, that in that day, I will write my laws on their hearts and on their minds. And he was talking about the day when everything else had been fulfilled. So in our day, the scripture says that he would write his laws on us, and we would be the walking, living epistles. So the difference is between what's written in the book, which I don't think in the New Testament was ever for us to begin with. It wasn't written to us. It was written to them. That stuff can be debated ad nauseum. That's why subjectively what God has written on individuals' hearts is what they're responsible for. All I look for in someone is, are they able to love? So to answer to his question is, it doesn't matter what people think the Bible is saying or does. I don't care at all. I care about what they believe in their heart, and are they following it with love? If they're not, I still love them. So that's not even a qualifier. Mm-hmm. But the text says he will write it on our hearts. And this totally throws sola scriptura and Calvin and the Reformation out the frickin' window. They did the greatest damage when he came up and said sola scriptura, sola scriptura. It's created 30,000 denominations, you know?
Yeah.
So, but if he's written it on your heart, you're responsible. You are, I am, Matt is, Mary is, and we're fine. Yeah.
That's a really interesting take. When I came on your show, you said, that you were going to tell me some things about Christianity that I hadn't heard before, and you were absolutely right. And that happens so rarely that I thought, I really need to have this guy on our show.
Yeah, I think he said he was going to have a better beard than you someday too, didn't you?
I have to interrupt, but why did we shave?
So
that's like cutting off the unit, dude.
It wasn't my choice to shave necessarily. I offered my beard as tribute as a fundraiser for Atheists of Utah.
Oh.
So we had a end of summer picnic, and it was, I offered my beard as tribute where people could buy tickets, and they had a choice of, they bought a ticket and they could put it in one of 3 little containers for a drawing later. And their choices were either keep it or dye it or shave it. And shave it ended up winning because people are terrible.
Yeah.
They are. They did it for spite.
Yeah. Just for fun. So just pick the worst thing.
So this is 2.5 weeks.
Well, that's already enviable.
Yeah. I mean, I've known you for 5 years now?
Somewhere in that area.
2 weeks ago was the first time I ever saw him without a beard.
No kidding.
Yeah, same.
Wow. How did you like looking in the mirror?
It was really fucking weird for a long time. And it's still a little off-putting, but when I had just the smooth cheek, like absolutely no facial hair at all, it was really fucking weird.
Yeah.
And that first night was like the coldest pillow I've ever felt in my entire life, I think. Like being able to actually feel it on my face was disturbing. And now I still have like phantom beard syndrome.
Yeah.
Like doing different things, I still in my mind picture myself with a beard, like when I'm in the shower. I wash my hair and everything, and then I go to shampoo my beard, and I'm like, oh shit, yeah, I don't have a beard anymore. And then I'll finish cleaning everything and turn the water off. And I used to shake my head to get all the water out of my beard, and I still go to do that, and I'm like, the hell am I doing that for? That's not going to help anything. Taking off my shirt, I always expect that my beard's going to come up into my face, and that doesn't happen. Yeah, so just lots of little things like that. When I get in bed at night and pull the covers up,
don't shave it.
There's a laundry list of things I've noticed. Honestly, when I get in bed and I pull the covers up, it's like I don't have to contend with, am I going to have the beard over the covers or under the covers? And just a whole long list of things that make your life so much different without a beard.
Fascinating.
And now I can be in envy of your wonderful mane.
Thank you.
Where were we? What were we? So with it being that loose of a tie to Christianity, is there anything stopping you from incorporating religious beliefs from other faith traditions?
There is, because what changed me was the message of Christ living, dying, resurrecting. So that's what
he had
I
a bad
stick
weekend,
to.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
That was Matt who I credit with telling me that initially. So there is really no line that you feel can't be crossed when diverging from the actual words of the Bible.
No.
Yeah, that seems to me that because of that, then it would be really easy to say, well, I take that to mean something that would indicate that, some of the teachings from these other religions are also valid and correct and could be incorporated.
Mm-hmm. And I do believe, I don't want to be offensive to Islam or Hindus and things, but I do believe that it is Christ working through them to bring people to him. And so I do think he is Lord and King, and I just think they don't know it yet. And so it's convenient for me to believe that, but that is how I see it, because I do believe he is the Lord and King. So, I think he's had the victory. I don't think he's a failure God. I think everybody, that's another thing that makes us very different. I believe in total reconciliation. Everybody will be reconciled to God after this life. And because of the eschatology, there's no hell. That's been done away with. And that's taught about in the Bible. That will be thrown away and done away with, and no more Satan. So all of that, done away with, and we live in a completely different age now.
And when you say people will be reconciled to Christ, what exactly do you mean by that?
I think that, we can have union with him now in the spirit through our heart, or we can reject that. And that's the freedom that God loves. He loves freedom. And if you reject it, I believe that at death, you'll have that constant chance to say, all right, I'll accept it now. Maybe you don't want it. But I think you kind of mocked me a little bit on the show when I said there's gates in the New Jerusalem.
Yeah, that again was one of the things that I've just never heard before.
Yeah.
There are holes in the
gates. I'm not going to let you say holes again. Because I said holes like a fool.
We're really excited about the holes.
He's going to get everybody in there somehow. There's holes in the gate. No, there's openings that it says open day and night for anyone who's outside of the city to come in. And so that is biblical. And I believe that's the case.
Yeah. Can I ramp it up just a tiny bit?
Ramp it.
So earlier you said just a tiny bit. You said, well, I've got it written down. I hope that would be smoother, but it wasn't. Are people able to love was one of your qualifiers.
Yeah.
So how do we explain that God created psychopaths and sociopaths, narcissists, people who we know can't love? They're incapable of it.
Yeah. I don't, subscribe to God creating it. I subscribe to him allowing that to happen because of free will. And because of free will, we have disease, we have very unfortunate things. And so I don't think those people would be accountable for failing to love if they don't have the capacity.
But free will doesn't affect biochemistry.
Well, it does if we go back to the origin stories, and that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you're talking about the fall of Adam, and that's where all the badness started coming in. So, okay. So all the diseases and stuff that kids are born with is our fault, not God's.
Yeah, I would say that it is the product of our choices, our decisions, universally to, do whatever we want to do, which is kind of the credo of atheists. I understand. Do what you will. But I think that well,
I don't believe in a will, actually. So,
yeah. Well,
so that's not my credo, but
but, I do think that we make our own bed, and, but I do think he's there to help us solve it too, through science and through chemistry and things like that. And I think it's his genius that works through us. And
is your God a omnimax God? Is he all loving, all powerful, all the good things?
I don't think God can do anything. I don't believe that. He's not omnipotent at all. No, because not at all. No, because he can't do anything he wants. Or I shouldn't say that. He can't do anything. Because that would go counter. That's counter.
Or there are some things that he can't do is maybe what right? Like you said, he can't do anything, and that could be taken one of two.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that clarification. God can't do anything, man.
I was like, wow, we got him on board quickly.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
quick conversion.
It was great having you on the show. Welcome to the Atheist Club.
Yeah. No, it's Calvin who says, Jean Calvin who says, no, he is sovereign. That's the word he imputed into the whole discussion. Sovereign. And I don't think that God is a sovereign like a king is a sovereign. God can't go bang chicks because God is good. God can't do these things that we assign to him. He is good. And so I have trouble with the omnipotence part.
Okay, right. So let's say, let me change that a little bit. So is he all, if we start with him being all good, right? Okay. There's none of the like go bang chicks. That's all on the bad side, right? Well, is he maxed out on the good side? I'm just saying. I'm using your example.
I know you are.
Yeah. So he can't go kill somebody, right? Obviously. So if we have a cube and we just cut it in half, bad and good, is he maxed out on the good half of the cube? Yeah. I mean, he can't reach over here, but he's all powerful within this realm, right?
Yeah, and the way that the scripture says is he's love. It's one of the only things where God is used. It's like used like 3 times, and God is love. So I'll say, instead of good, I'll say love.
Okay. Yeah. Is he omniscient?
I think so, but there's some guys, Greg Boyd, who's an open theist. He argues that. He has good points. I'm not sure. There's a lot of things I don't know. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you say probably?
Yeah. Seems like it.
Okay. I'll take that as a yes.
That was a very, very, very good answer.
Let's just go with a tentative yes.
Okay. Tentative yes.
So back to the other problem then. When he's doing the creating, he knows all of the beginning to end, all of it's happening at one, like there's no such thing as time, but it's all happening at once. He understands everything beginning to end, up, down, all that.
Yeah.
So when he makes a psychopath, he's condemning him at the same time because there's no love there. And since God knows all of the answers all of the time and has the power to do that, that there's no way that can be the fault of the being, right? That's the fault of the being. That's the fault of the omniscient creator.
If the psychopath winds up in hell, you're right. And if the psychopath pays for being a psychopath that he can't help, you're absolutely correct.
Well, I mean, just tying it back into your church. Let's say he is a psychopath, but he lives a very good life. Other than the fact that he can't love, which is what God.
Still not accountable. If he can't love, then he's part of the product that couldn't love. God knew that, uses it for his will, which to us could look evil. Uses it for his plan, but in the end will reconcile all things to himself. All things from the beginning he knew, bad and good from our perspective, but he will bring it around to his good will, because it has to be goodwill in the end, because he's love. So that's why we can say the things that occur that look so heinous to us under his watch are loving, in the sense that he will make it right in the end. To us, someone starving in Africa seems like a heinous God who doesn't care, an absentee manager. But to me, if you have the grand scheme of it in play for a God who is love, that's the principle I stand on, then in that he is going to work it out for good. And that person who had a bad weekend and starved to death in the eternities,
maybe they were crucified.
Maybe they were crucified, whatever.
So, and that satisfies you? I mean, so if someone rapes your daughter and you find that guy and he says, don't worry, I'm going to give you $1,000 in 40 years.
Yeah.
That makes it okay. I mean, maybe $1,000 is low, but I'm just saying $1 million, billion. I mean, there's no price for that, right? But I'm saying, I mean, so you talk about free will. I mean, a case like that, whose will is being protected, right? The girl who's being raped is having her free will taken for the sake of the perpetrator, for his free will, right? So to say to her then that, okay, well, it's okay that you were raped because in the long run, that it's all going to be made up somehow.
I wouldn't say to her it's okay that she was raped.
Well, okay, yeah, bad choice of words, but the idea of prolonged
suffering for a prize at the end? No, that's probably the wrong way to say it.
Yeah, you worded that perfectly, Ron. Thanks.
Yeah. Ron has the best bad words.
To be reimbursed or pay, repaid, recovered, whatever, all that
to
negativity.
Have your recompense so far down the line.
Well, so far down the line, and
not actually guaranteed necessarily.
Well, and I just don't see how that could even be worth it, because in the moment you're being stripped of all of those things, including the will that's supposed to be the most important thing in the plan.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that would work with a loving God. You know what I'm saying?
What I would say to my daughter, who was raped horribly, and that it was an absolute horrible event, and 2, God was not the author of it. 3, the reason things like that happen is because of free will. The person who raped her had the choice to rape her or not. And she has the free will to turn that into something that will benefit her life or help others and train them what to do in the case of it. Or she can turn it to bitterness. We have that constant choice. We are, as Sartre says, we're condemned to be free. Now, I know this might go against kind of what Dan said, because I don't think you believe in free will, but I believe that's fundamental to my core belief.
Sure.
Free will. And so I think everything is a constant opportunity to turn it for good and see what God does with it in the end. And I think that in the end, he does turn these horrible things to good if we let him. That's just the way I would see it.
First, I want to let Dan have a shot, but I shouldn't have made that so personal in the example, and I apologize for that.
No, I understand.
We'll just say somebody out there, you know.
But it's more effective if it's my daughter.
I know, but that's awful, though. I mean,
I get what you mean, though.
No, yeah. So I have a couple of questions. So along the lines of free will, do you believe that you're the author of your own thoughts?
Well, that's tough, because we are subject to our environment and our genetics and what our parents did to us. So I think that we're constantly the author of choosing to address them, but I'm not sure if we're the author of our own thoughts. No, I don't know. There's too many factors involved to say yes.
Well, yeah. So that's why, that is a big sticking point for me as far as the free will discussion, right? Yeah. So like if I tell you, don't think about a pink elephant, what is the first thing that pops into your mind?
That's right.
And you have no choice in that matter. That's just there.
Yeah.
You're not the author of that thought. You're a passenger along for the ride, saying, okay, well, I feel like I have a choice in these different things, and I can, when presented with options, I may be able to convince myself that, I would prefer to do this thing, or I'm going to do this thing versus another thing. But really, when you take a step back and think about it for a little while, there are a lot of things that happen in your life, or things that you do that, a lot of people would say you quote unquote had a choice to do or not.
Right.
But anybody else, given your entire life circumstance up until that point, would have acted exactly the same way as you. And to say that they would have chosen differently, I think, is a fallacy. Like, you can't have gone through all of those experiences and then have a point where you make a decision and make a choice or perform an action and say that if somebody else had lived your life perfectly up until that point, that they would have done something different, because they wouldn't have, because clearly you didn't, right? Mm-hmm. You have all that experience walking into that situation, and this was the decision that you made or the choice that you made, right?
Sure.
And so to me, it sounds like you say that you believe in a sense of free will, but even then it's more of a compatibilist view of free will.
Yeah, I think so. And I get your point. I mean, and that is why I think the grace of God is so important, is because he understands that we've had so much shit happen to us that a lot of the things that the most heinous, criminals have done really isn't a product of their own free will to do it. And I think that plays into this gentle, graceful God of love than this despotic God who's like pointing fingers at people who really had no choice to begin with. I just am really I'm kind of an existentialist in the idea that we are constantly having to make decisions. Even though the information that we're making them on is tainted, we still are choosing something. And I understand your philosophical point, because, it has merit. I can't refute it completely. It's kind of my view.
You're very soft on a lot of these things, damn it. I want to be able to nail you on some of this stuff. It's like, oh, he's going to wiggle out of it somehow.
Honestly, I am speaking the truth.
No, I know you are.
Yeah,
and I really
do the argument.
That, yeah.
I am speaking how we.
No, yeah, I think you come across as being very genuine. You're not dissembling. You're not trying to, mask what you really believe by using different language or anything. I think you're speaking from the heart, and I really admire
Which
that.
I also loved it earlier when you said, honestly, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing we always say, like.
That's something we hardly ever hear from Christians.
Like, really? I don't know is a valid answer. There's just certain things
is so
you
valid.
just don't know.
Most things. We don't know most things.
We don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I love that when you said that earlier, when you just said, I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you do baptism at your church?
We do if people want, and we do it any way they want, and anyone can do it. So you can sprinkle, you can dunk.
See, that was going to be my next question.
A kid can do it. A mom can do it. You can do it in whatever name you want. You don't have to do a name. It's up to the individual. It's subjective.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Do you recommend baptism, or do you think people should be baptized? And what do you think is the goal of baptism in your church in particular?
Well, it's really the way we say it. It's an outward expression of an internal faith. So it's really not necessary in any.
It's not a requirement to be born again or cleanse your sins, and you've reached whatever point in your life where you're now accountable for those sins and you can wash them away and that kind of thing.
None of that stuff. It's just, and I do find it beneficial. We're kind of tactile creatures. And when you can have an experience that has, like a chiropractor feels better than a general practitioner.
Yeah.
They touch you. And baptism kind of has a religious thing that people just freaking love doing them. They love to be baptized. I really think they think their sins are somehow being washed away. And so those types of people get to have them. We do it in a cow font out in the summer, but I don't find it necessary at all for anyone who refuses it.
What's the point of your church?
The point really
that was a nice question.
Well, I'm just curious. I mean, if God is so loosey, it doesn't matter. There's no real, I mean, usually I'm just saying, I know you're unorthodox clearly, but usually the point of it is to get the herd and moving in one direction, because these are the rules that God wants us to, we do these things and that's what he likes.
Yeah.
But for you, it seems just like, life is going to happen and that's how it's going to be. And at the end, I'll just have a happy party.
Yeah.
So
it's not completely that, but, this is the point. We do something that most churches don't do because it drives people away. That's why we're not very big. I teach verse by verse through the books of the New Testament. And the reason we do that is because it gives people a chance to decide if they want to follow what that thing says or not. Now, everything in it isn't necessarily, you don't have to follow. I don't follow a lot of it, but it's up to them. So, and the reason we do that, Matt, is because there is a link, in my estimation, between faith and love. There's a link between those, and this is what I mean by that. If you teach somebody that God says you should forgive people 7 times 70 or whatever Jesus said, you can choose to acquiesce to that and assent to that, and then by forgiving, you're exercising love. So they're linked. You have faith that was an important thing. If you say, I don't believe that's important, then you don't exercise the love associated with it. So our whole purpose is to teach so people can make the choice of, do they want to follow that certain thing subjectively, and then help them to what we believe would be to love better. That's essentially it.
So if I have faith in stoning unruly children, that's my link to love?
No, because it wouldn't be loving.
Well,
we can, and because the
it's in the Bible though.
Yeah, but
but I'm just saying, if that's a verse that I have faith in, you're just saying faith is connected. The Bible is problematic, but there must be something else in that you didn't say in what you were explaining between the link.
The only thing I
faith
didn't
and love.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
the only thing I didn't say is that the Bible defines what love looks like, and that's the caveat, and that's described in to give references: Ephesians 5, Galatians 6, and 1 Corinthians 13. It defines what this love that we're trying to promote looks like, and it's selfless, and it's patient, and it's kind, and it's long suffering. It doesn't stone people. It's not. So that New Testament, which it really wasn't, those apostolic letters, they describe the love that we're trying to get people to promote. So it can't, if someone says, I think it's loving to stone my children, I would say that's your choice. You can do that, but I would suggest to you strongly that that is outside of the description of what love is. Yeah.
Then why is it in there?
It was in there because now we're going back to Old Testament. Why was there ever that whole deal? And I mean, just to summarize and make it clear, it was to show the need for a Messiah. That if that nation wanted to get to God on their own merits, they weren't going to be able to do it. And they didn't. They practiced idolatry. If you want to do it by the law, good frickin' luck. So it was really to show them the need for the Messiah to come and do it for them and believe on him. That's the purpose of that old law, as heinous as it can be.
I don't think I understand. Sorry, I know you want to get something else.
It's okay. Let's talk about it.
I'm digging this line of thought.
But so the purpose of the Old Testament, according to you, is to prove that the Jews couldn't do it on their own.
Yeah.
But so that's also a very unorthodox take on the Old Testament. I mean,
probably not. Paul says it himself. He says it in Galatians that the law was a schoolmaster to bring us to Christ. So I'm trying to obey the Sabbath. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. I freaking can't do it. They failed in every perspective. And so when the Messiah comes, who was promised to them, he says, look to me. I will be the one who bring you in. You can't do it on your own. And that's what Paul, the Sanhedrin Pharisee, says. The law was to bring the Jews as a nation to the schoolmaster and to show them they needed him. It was their schoolmaster to show them they needed a Messiah. And it was a long time that law was in place. Why does God take so long? I have no idea.
Okay, so you're saying the Old Testament wasn't God's law at all?
No, it was his law. Yeah, it was his law, given to Moses, brought down from the mount, given to the nation of Israel. Obey these rules. But they couldn't do it. They could not obey those rules because
would not. You mean, right?
Would not.
Okay, because you're okay. All right, I think that because
that was the hitch.
I think that's maybe one of them.
Yeah.
I think because it sounded like you were saying it was an impossibility, which so then I thought, well, he can't be talking about. It doesn't matter what I was going through. I probably lost my train of thought on the whole thing, but
you don't know what you're going through.
Huh?
No, you don't know what you're going through.
Yeah, I don't know. Ron, help me.
You guys are really messing me up with this.
Go ahead, Dan.
So let's see. So during my guest spot on your show, you said that you're not a fan of Christianity. I think we've kind of gone over what you meant by that.
Yeah.
I think it's more that you view a lot of the organized, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you view a lot of the organized Christian faiths as being corrupted by power, but being corrupted by love of power, love of money, love of authority, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And it goes opposite to what God said he would do in that age where he would write it on our hearts. Pastors stand up and make themselves the authority, and they are collecting.
You will respect my authority.
They're collecting money and you must obey and you must be baptized and all of that stuff is church playing. Yeah.
So on a related question, we have a listener question from Taylor Grin who says, what makes you special such that you get to pick and choose which religious bits to believe? And then what makes any religious leaders special in this regard? Yeah,
it's a great question. I'm not special. All I can tell him is that I have done my homework. I have for nearly 30 years been at 5 or 6 in the morning for 4 or 5 hours at it studying. And the thing that makes at least me unique is that I have changed my position so many times as new information comes along. And I'm not against that at all. So I rail against the Trinity. And that has made me anathema to the Christian churches because I discovered it was a hoax. And when I believed in it. When I went to Calvary Chapel School of Ministry, I believed the Trinity. I believed in hell. I believed in a second coming. But when I discovered that they were wrong, I changed. And I did that on the air because everything we did was live. And so I became known as this loose cannon who couldn't get moored on anything because everything, but I will change. And that's the only thing I can say is that if you can show me something that will alter my view, I will change it.
And I think that's fucking fabulous, actually. I think that's fantastic because so many religious people are very, very dogmatic in their views and their beliefs, right? Yeah. That it's, no, this is right and this is true and it will always be this way, no matter what.
Yeah.
Nothing you can say.
Yeah, blacks will never be able to hold the priesthood until God changes his mind.
Yeah. Well, it just reminds me of the Ken Ham debate with I just forgot.
Bill Nye.
Bill Nye's name. Yeah, where Bill Nye, they're asked the same question. Bill Nye says, evidence. Evidence will change my mind.
Yeah.
And Ken Ham says, nothing.
Yeah, he's not.
Nothing will change my mind.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not a good position
horrible.
to have.
It's horrible.
So I'm guessing you don't like Ken Ham very much.
No.
Yeah, we don't
either. I don't like that arc, and I don't like the Creation Center for...
Yeah, his Creation Museum.
Oh, all
the
that
Genocide
stuff.
and Incest Park. A friend of mine coined that term he works for American Atheists now, but was the president of the Tri-State Freethinkers. And they put up a billboard that referred to the Ark Park as the Genocide and Incest Park.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious.
That got a lot of news, of course, because the Christians were not very happy about it. Ken Ham was definitely not happy about it.
Do you believe in the Ark, really quick?
I believe it was a geographical flood. I think the Ark.
Do you think it was a global flood or a regional? Okay.
Regional. It was a basin that you can pretty much see, and I think they had a couple animals on there, and I don't believe in the worldwide flood. I don't believe in a young earth. I don't believe in, I believe that evolution can have a place and science has a great place. I don't believe any of the hocus pocus that evangelicals push and there's a lot of Christians who don't. And that's the unfortunate thing is the evangelicals have the loudest voice and they just crush everybody else and they make everyone look pretty bad.
So none of the hocus pocus, just the creation of Adam and Eve and the fall.
Well,
heaven and gates.
Just the pocus.
Let me ask you something,
just
Matt.
the pocus.
Do you think that the creation of Adam and Eve is more hocus pocusy than lightning striking a mud puddle and us crawling out as creatures and developing into? To me, it's all
that's
hocus
not what evolution
pocus.
says.
Yeah, that's a straw man. But even if I accept that, then I would say those are probably pretty equal.
Okay, I can agree. But when you call one of my things hocus pocus,
no, that's fine.
Yeah.
But that isn't one of my things.
Yeah. Well, then where did the origin of man come from?
The origin of man?
Yeah. I mean, have we always been developed and walking around, or did we come from some? Okay, so to me, that's as hocus pocusy as an Adam and Eve story.
Okay,
yeah,
but you did say there was a place for evolution.
Absolutely.
Okay, so then it's not.
And Adam and Eve could have been cave people for all I know, and we could have evolved from there. So I don't get into
yeah. If Adam and Eve refers to, like, say, early humans or even Homo erectus or whatever, it doesn't matter, anything along that line. Mm-hmm. Okay, now that's science. That's not hocus pocus because we know that's what happened. But we certainly didn't come from two individuals. But
well,
at least genetically and scientifically.
Yeah, I've heard that, but I hear other things, and I'm not a scientist, and I do practice this thing that I stand by, and I cannot defend it. It is faith. So I do have to admit faith into my worldview. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when I read that, I do trust in the story. Now, was there a creation before that? Were there other worlds? Were there dinosaurs then? Or were there dinosaurs? I don't know any of that, but I do accept the creation story.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you determine what you'll take or believe on faith and what you will not?
It's a matter of, what Christians would call the spirit, what's been written on your heart. And then what does the biblical evidence support? And so that's why I'm so loose on worldwide flood or 6-day creation or any of those things. But Adam and Eve, it's pretty well supported through both apostolic writings and Old Testament writers, and then including Moses. If those texts are correct, that's the story. So that's why I stand on it. But other things have so much play in them, I don't go down the dogma road.
So what do you say to somebody who says that they also believe, or that they also base a lot of their personal beliefs on faith, but they come to a completely different conclusion? They're not even Christians, right? They're they're Buddhists or Islamists or not Islamists. They're Muslims. They could be an Islamist Muslim, I guess.
What about those Torahists?
Or they're or they're Jewish, and they believe every bit as strongly as you do, and they say that they're doing that on faith as well.
Yeah.
How do you determine who's correct?
I don't. Yeah, that's the whole problem. That's why you asked about baptism. You want to take one simple single subject and see division. It's that one. And so I just say, who knows? You know, and if Islamist says, you know, Adam and Eve, no, it was this and that, I say, fine. I mean, that's the problem, is dogma divides, and dogma does not get you into heaven. There's not going to be a theology exam with God. There's going to be, did you love? That is the test. So that's why I refuse to divide on things. I'll argue them and I'll articulate my views, but I would never divide over any different position that someone has regarding God or non-God. No.
So let me see. So somebody who is a Muslim and believes in their faith traditions and beliefs, surrounding Muhammad was a prophet, Allah is God, Jesus was also a prophet, but was not the son of God. Mm-hmm. And they know this just as much as you say that you know that what you believe is true. Mm-hmm. How is that reconciled? You say all things will be reconciled to Christ, but that's your views,
sure.
Right? I mean, and your use of the Bible and a bunch of other beliefs is so loosey-goosey. Is it possible that you are actually a Muslim and just don't really know it yet?
Yeah. We see through a glass darkly. We don't know anything. We're ambling forth with scant information. And so I used to be a dogmatic. I took my dickness and I transferred it to this television show, and I was dogmatic on there, and everyone loved it. And then when I stopped being that way and I became more like what we say Jesus was, people hated me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so
that happens with conservative Christians all over the place, right? They don't act at all like what they say Jesus taught them to
they
act
don't at all. You guys act more like Jesus than they do. I know. And I'm not saying that to blow smoke up your skirt. It's actually true. But there's a lot of Christians I know, at least not a lot, but my friends, they understand that. They, got guys who are bikers and they say, I don't even want to deal with Christians. I like the people who don't have anything to do with it. They're just nicer people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope I didn't lose the point too far here.
No, not at all. I think that was a great answer. When I was on your show, you said that faith is a choice. But if you don't know what other faiths are available, is it really a choice to believe that particular faith? And when I was on the show and you said that, it reminded me of an encounter I had with some Mormon fundamentalists. There was a polygamist group, Atheists of Utah, organized a camping trip, and the Allred clan happened to also be camping in the same group campsite. Well, not the same campsite, but the same group loop of campsites. And, Atheists of Utah had one site, and the Allred clan had every other camping site
for their family.
Yeah, at this particular camping location. And they came over and we had a nice conversation. We talked to them. They seemed like very friendly, carefree people. One of the things that they said that concerned me a little bit was, the patriarch who was there said that they're very open about their beliefs with their children, and that they tell them that, we could be wrong, but this is what we believe, and you're free to explore other things. And my point or my response to that was, well, that's all fine and good. And I appreciate that you do that. Once they are at an age where they can understand what you're saying and can process that, there are other faiths out there, but when they've been raised in a particular faith their entire life and they've been steeped in that their entire life, is it really providing them much of a choice to say, at a certain age, oh yeah, well, now that we've taught you all of these things, right, we also need to teach you that there are other things out there that we don't believe in, by the way, because we think they're wrong, but you're totally free to go and explore them by yourself. And so is it really a choice for a lot of people, whether they believe or not, and the faith that they follow for most of their lives?
I'm going to try to truncate the answer. It's not really a choice at a certain point in your life, but everybody has that moment when they say, is this stuff bullshit? And you do have the onus upon you to decide, am I going to stay in the comfort zone of what I've been taught and not make it any big deal, just play along, or will I, what I would call, or will I be a seeker? And seekers find. And so if there is something that will confront good faith and bad faith, and I think it was Kierkegaard who talked about good faith and bad faith. That's the dividing line for me. Good faith or bad faith. Bad faith is God has a pink wig and he, rides a goat, whatever. Good faith. I have a thing I teach and it's honey is the substance of bees not seen. Okay. Honey is the substance of bees not seen. The evidence of, I can't remember now. Forget. Blew that one. But anyway,
this is a thing I teach at my church.
Yeah, and I can't remember it.
Is it if you find honey, there was bees?
Honey is the substance of bees not seen. The substance of bees hoped for. The substance of bees hoped for. Let's say that people have talked about bees forever, but we've never seen one. Well, you go out to the wilderness and if you find honey, you say honey is the evidence of bees not seen. Well, faith is the substance of things not seen. That's what it is. It's a substance, okay? But it's a good substance. It's evidence of some things that we hold as fact. So I understand talking to you three that what I would call substantive evidentiary facts might be laughable to you. But that I do think there are reasonable evidences for the faith I possess. And I think that it is not bad faith. I think the faith I possess is a good faith. For instance, you look at the cosmos, you look at humans, you look at a baby being born, you look at a walnut tree, you don't see God. I look at it and I think that it's good faith based off evidence to say, I think there's a creator. I'm not going to say I'm right, you're wrong, you're going to hell. That's just our differences in how I've chosen faith. So that's all I mean by it. Now, if someone says to me, this was created by aliens who all live on Mars, I just think it's a bad faith. So it's just a difference of opinion. But I do think faith is a choice.
Yeah. Just don't watch the History Channel then, because that's all the History Channel is ancient aliens.
Really?
Oh,
there's Bigfoot in there.
Bigfoot, ancient. Yeah. It's all.
I do want to throw in there though. I'm familiar with those verses about faith, but making an analogy to honey, I think, is a flaw because honey is tangible. It's a physical object. Faith is not tangible and it's metaphysical.
Yeah.
And so when you substitute those words, it sounds really great because, it's almost, I mean, I'm not saying you're being slippery, but there's almost a little trick there. I'm not saying, because you pull it from this, the ether of wherever faith exists into something we're all very familiar with. And you're saying, oh, the bees are unseen, but everyone knows what honey is. So now all of a sudden people are clicking and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes total sense. But actually it doesn't make any sense, really.
Well, the reason I use it is because the Greek word in describing faith is the substance of things not seen. Now you can say, well, that doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not a metaphysician, but to me, that means it's an actual thing. So while it might sound slippery to you, to me, I didn't just create the honey as a substance to just make it more tangible. That's what the scripture I trust says. Faith is a substance of things not seen. So that's why I use the analogy of the honey substance. I get that you don't agree with it, but to me, it's not as slippery as it.
I should have said sticky, but yeah, it's slippery. But
I wish.
Dan will edit that in post. It'll sound a lot better.
It'll be great.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Let's see. So when I was on your show, I said that faith and religion can do some great things. What I failed to mention or didn't have a chance to say, what I usually follow that up with is that I have yet to see any verifiable good which is provided by religion or faith that cannot be found outside of religion or faith.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? Is there
absolutely true? And this is one of my criticisms about the modern faith is that ever so quickly corporations are taking over what the church used to do. I mean, you're seeing a cause behind every single thing. The supermarkets are gathering money. And I'm telling the churches, you're going to become obsolete. They're going to say, you know, we're pouring a ton of money into you. And what are you doing that my job and the corporations aren't doing? So I think
paying settlements to pedophiles.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I think you make a great point there. However, Dan, what I think the churches should be teaching is how to love better. And so that is something you might not get in a corporate setting, but you should be able to get in a church setting, if anything. Mm-hmm. And that's why I don't think our job as pastors is to build empires or to, it's not even to feed the poor. It is to teach people to love better and let them go feed the poor. And that's why the institutional side should be discarded now and let the corporations take over the good that can be done in the community. Yeah.
It's an interesting point.
It is.
Let's see. Do you think is God perfect?
Yeah, I say he is absolutely, he's light. There's no shadow in him. He is love. And in that is perfection. Absolutely. Yeah.
So perfect in all ways that it could be for him to be God.
As much as I feel like I'm going to be trapped now, yes.
Well, and I'm honestly not trying to trap you, but it seems inconsistent to me that a being that is perfect would have any needs at all, right?
Yeah.
So there would be, if a being is absolutely perfect, it basically would cease to exist from its own perfection because it would have no needs, no wants, desires, nothing. There would be no creation. There would be no motivation to create in the first place because everything about that being is perfect initially.
Unless you
that's fine if you want to jump in, but anything that being does would be any act that being does, any creation it makes would be less than perfect, which introduces disorder and chaos into its existence, which then makes its own existence lessened, right? And if it is perfect, then anything it created would lessen its own existence and its own happiness, for lack of a better word, because something that's perfect would be unconcerned whether it was happy or not.
Right.
But so if God is perfect, then what would be the point to anything that's going on in the universe, and why would God care?
It seems to me that in his perfections, creation is part of it. That's part of the definition of perfection, that you create. And in creating, you would make things fallible because they're not going to make them perfect. Because if you did, then we'd be automatons and puppets, and then there'd be no need for progressing. So in making creations and giving creation free will, that fallibility in that, his perfection is amplified by the fact that he brings about that imperfection to perfection through his love. And so that is my answer to that. I think that, yes, he does extend himself creatively constantly. That is a form of his perfection. In those creations, they are fallible, but in his perfection of love, he brings all of it to the place where he is, which is light and love.
But why? Well, you said that part of being perfect necessitates creation.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem to follow to me. How do you get from here to there with being perfect, and then being perfect necessitates creating things?
The only way I come up with that, Dan, is by the fact that he's the creator and he creates. So I just take that and I say, to me, I believe he's a perfect God. He creates. What he creates is not perfect. So that's what we have. I don't know how, and I can't prove that being a creator is part of perfection. I just have to make that jump and just say that's what I think.
Yeah, well, that seems to me that this is one of the things. So we're getting into a little bit more of the traditional Christian arguments that I would have with different people, where, when you get to a point where you can ask them something that they can think about logically, rather than exploring that a little bit more, they just say, well, I believe that God is perfect, and I know that things have been created. So now I've got to somehow shoehorn that in to fit my epistemology, right? Yeah. I have to make something that doesn't logically fit. I've got to cram it in there somehow. And I don't even necessarily have a great explanation for it, but it's what I have to go with. And you say you're not into dogma, but that does seem a very dogmatic view about something to say that, a perfect being logically wouldn't have to create anything. So, with that knowledge in mind, with the fact, coupled with the fact that we do see that things exist, I wouldn't say that they've necessarily been created, but things exist. And so on a biblical view and a view of God as being the creator of all of these things, then you've got to just kind of somehow shove that in there and stuff it into your little box of, well, that fits, that doesn't fit into my view of everything. I know, I believe that God is perfect, but I also know that there is creation. So how do I reconcile those? And I really can't. So I have to say, well, I really don't know how it works, but
that is the case. That's the key part of it, is that I don't know how it works, but that is the way it works.
Well, yeah.
Well, no, I'm not saying that is the way it works. I'm saying for me, that's how it works. And the dogma part that I refuse is that I would never say someone else has to believe that. That's where I hate dogma. I have my own dogma. Sure. Yeah. But the question I have for you is, why do you extract creation out of a perfect being's ontology? What makes a perfect being not a creator?
Well, I guess so to me, I can't imagine that there would ever be a perfect being, or that if there were ever a perfect being, it would have to be only that being, and it couldn't do anything else.
But you're doing the same thing I'm doing. You're saying that in your mind, a perfect being would be a perfect being and would not do anything else. In my mind, a perfect being would create.
But why?
For the same reason that your perfect being wouldn't. I don't know.
Well, no, I'm saying that if a being is actually perfect, right?
Yeah.
And is powerful enough to do just about whatever it wanted, it wouldn't have any wants. It wouldn't have any need to create anything. There would be no desires at all. It would be a perfect being.
Yeah. His being is perfect, but is his desires for more imperfect, or would that be a form of perfection?
Yeah, it would be.
It would be.
It would be. Well, I mean, if you think everything, if you imagine it as completely maxed out in perfection, there are no deficits whatsoever, right? Because we're talking about perfection. It's hard to wrap human brains around infinity and perfection, all this, because we don't have any examples of it. But if it's maxed out perfection, there's no deficit in any area. Yeah. Anywhere, right? Yeah. So no desire.
So perhaps I need to change. He's not He's not maxed out perfection. He's limited perfection. I will change on that right now. No problem.
Awesome. Yeah. We'll make you an atheist one day.
Actually, that's a great lead into that big question we were all wondering, why you stopped short.
Oh, yeah.
Because you'd started off the trail from Mormonism and you got so close.
You were like, this Mormonism is bullshit.
I see.
Organized religion is bullshit.
I see.
Yeah. And then rather than, just going, well, it's all bullshit, the way Matt and I and the vast majority of atheists I know have done, where they, can take a step back and go, well, I was taught this, and then I learned about this, and this from all of these other religions, and clearly those are also incorrect. And then I start looking into the Bible more. I start looking at theological beliefs, philosophy, and decide, well, really religious belief in itself is kind of bullshit. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, what Matt was getting to, and was the question that the three of us were kind of asking ourselves earlier, is how is it that some people can be very devout LDS people or religious people of any stripe and decide that religion doesn't suit them, but then pick, a Mormon adjacent thing to move to instead of chucking it all and going, well, it's all bullshit.
Yeah.
How does one go from, well, this is bullshit to being adjacent to bullshit?
Yeah. It's a great question. And my answer, is this. I stopped short prior to leaving Mormonism. I became a nihilist. I became an atheist. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know if I believed it. And the result of that in my life, which is the only thing I can measure anything by, was deleterious. It was deleterious to my attitude toward my neighbors. I was getting in fist fights 3 or 4 times a day. Ask my wife. I was a rat bastard. Okay.
A real fucker.
A real fucker. I can't.
And she stayed with you.
And
that's love.
She stayed with me. But just understand.
You weren't fist fighting her, right?
There were a couple times. There were a couple times. You know, I nothing horrible, but I mean, I was a womanizer who could not control his animalistic passions, and I became completely godless prior to leaving Mormonism. Okay. When I had that roadside experience, and people can dispute it, mock it, or whatever, but when I had it, that changed me. And so in that change, I have stood ever since. And it has not only just remained at that point, it has continued to grow to the point where now I don't hate Mormons that I came from, and now I don't hate evangelicals, and now I don't hate atheists. That love that was planted in me is the evidence for me personally as to why I don't go the way of atheism. There's too much subjective evidence for me personally. And so by that, I live. That's all I can say.
Is your view of being godless free from morals? Because you equated it to when you were womanizing and fist fighting and all that, and you said you went totally godless.
Well, for a Mormon, and you might know, Matt, that if you discount God out of things and Mormonism isn't true, then to me it was immoral. It was equated. But I am not saying godless people today are immoral. I'm just saying I was. When a Mormon, realizes the church is false, God's false too. Screw everybody. Yeah.
Sure.
That's all I meant.
Okay.
Yeah. I know one thing I hate, and you two hate, and you probably won't like it either. It's when someone makes a reference going, well, if I was an atheist, I could just go kill whoever I wanted because I don't have a God.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you
come on.
fucking asshole. That's not how this works.
Then please keep going to church.
Yes, please. And I have to say, Ryan, that is why I do go. And that's why if someone criticizes me for my faith and might mock it, all I have to say to them is you just be fucking glad I found what I found. Because you're insulting me right now. And in my former day, I'd fucking take you out. You see? So religion helps me like Prozac helps people. I need it, but it did work. But it hasn't limited me to their dogma. I've been able to get beyond it, and the love has grown.
I think that's a big point. I think religion does that for most people.
Yeah.
I mean, because, I think for us, it's not that drug. So we're totally confused. I know I live right by a Mormon, of course, I'm in Orem, so I live right by a Mormon church, and there's also a pretty big Catholic church right on my street, too. And every goddamn Sunday, I can't even drive down my own road because they won't park in your own parking lots. You have them, use them. They park on the goddamn road so they can get out of there and run to the store and block my way on so you're not supposed to be there on Sundays. Anyway, so I can't even.
Well, and they're in such a rush to get out of church. They're like, I've got to be the first one.
That's what I'm saying,
I want to fucking hang out with these assholes.
But my point is, I drive by and I see everybody's there. And in my mind, I'm like, these are grown people. These are adults that are showing up on their own. They want to be here. I can't understand why they would want to be here. Must be like that. I mean, that's the only thing I can think that would be such a draw, right?
I think the draw for them is fear. I think the draw for them is guilt. I think the draw for them is their wife want them to be a good priesthood holder.
Yeah.
But for me, Matt, it was not that. It was not church. Going to church never helped me. It was that thing that happened that helped me, which is why I don't think church is necessary. Yeah.
No, I don't get the feeling that you're a follow the trends, go with who everyone else kind of guy.
Yeah.
You're sort of a do what you want, dude.
Yeah. Still.
Yeah. So kind of along the lines of, you saying you were a real fucker before and everything.
How many? I think we revisit this 5 times.
We have a listener question from Andrew writing. And when I was on your show, you said that and you've mentioned it kind of here tonight, but you said that if God inserted himself by helping or saving people, he would be a despot, and that the bad things that happen in the world, paraphrasing, may not be bad in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
He also said that God touches your heart when you may want to beat the crap out of someone. And I don't want to, say something that may make you change your mind and unleash the Hulk here in the studio.
Thanks.
He's got the green mic.
But so you also said God touches your heart when you may want to beat the crap out of someone, which leads me to our first listener question from Andrew that says, and it's not our first listener question. I had to reorder these later. But
he was the first one to post a question.
Right. Yeah, he was the first one to post it. Thank you. And he says that when you say that God doesn't tell you what to do because that would ruin your free will, that it would make you a slave because you wouldn't be able to oppose God. I totally get that. But I accept it as something believers think about free will. However, when you say that God tells you things in your heart, isn't that just slavery with more steps? Or is he not really communicating with you like that? I don't understand how you can have both.
It's a great question. There's two responses I would give. First of all, it would be that what he communicates to your heart is not a you must. It's this love. This is love, but you have the choice. He's not possessing you. You don't lose it and you just love and when Christians say that,
I'm possessed by God's demon.
Yeah.
I just want to love everybody.
He just made me, and there's a choice. I believe in that completely. Yeah. So that would be that. And then there was another thought I had and I can't remember. I might be getting tired. Yeah, I can't remember it. I'm sorry.
We're wearing on you.
Yeah. No, you're not.
Let's see.
This has been really good, you guys. I've really enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah. I have too. This has been awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
So if we don't know what good can come from things we perceive as bad or evil and can wave away any concerns about them because we may not know the big picture, what point is there to having any faith at all, other than to placate us through difficult times? It seems like a circular argument. That if we can look around the world and see that there are evil, heinous things going on, mm-hmm. and can kind of, do a little dismissive hand waving to say, well, we don't have the full picture. There may be some good that will come of this through God's plan. But then you could say that about anything, right? And so it just seems like some hand waving circular logic. Again, like, this is what I believe, but this is what I see going on, and the two don't really mix. Mm-hmm. And so I've got to reconcile those as a Christian. And so I just say, well, in the grand scheme of things, this thing that I view as bad right now is probably an ultimate good.
Right. Yeah. Rather than dropping the belief side and just going with what you see.
Right.
Right. Yeah. It seems to me like, that any evil is reprehensible to God, who is love. So a child being raped is not something we, Christian, could ever be dismissive of and say, it was for your good, honey, and it's going to work out fine. You just don't worry. I don't think that's the Christian approach. But I do think that it's important that you help somebody who has been a victim of something heinous to say that this was, of course, not your fault. God is not behind this. He loves you and he's here to help you through it. And in the end, he will help you through it. And that's the best I can do. I'm not big on saying, God did that. God did this. God didn't do that. He saved this kid from getting hit by the car, because there's kids who aren't saved from getting hit by the car. I can't ever get on that one. All I can say is he's there just to try to help with the free will in mind. Yeah. I don't know if that was a sufficient answer, but
he's kind of a therapist God then.
A therapist God.
Sort of after the fact.
He is an after the fact God. He's an absentee manager because to be involved would be despotic, and people just can't get that through their head when it comes to the discussion.
People don't want to be micromanaged.
No.
It's hard. It is hard to get through my head because it's inconsistent with the rest of what people say about what God's abilities are. And in my mind, and sorry, I know we're trying to wrap it up here, but, if he, and I know you've backed off of some of his abilities, but, if he wants to make people, right, let's just take the standard Christian idea. He's omnimax. Just make the people already done. Right? Just make them already perfect. Let's forget the hell. Let's not make the people that are going to go to hell. Let's just not make them. Let's just not create those people, which you already know are going to go to hell. Let's just make all the people that are back, and let's just make them all perfect already, and we'll just throw our party right away.
Do you really think that, Matt? I mean, do you really think that a good God would say, I'm just going to make the good people who I know are good, or I will make them good. I'm not going to make any bad, or I'm not going to make people who I know will choose bad. That is making puppets. That is making a nation of robots.
Puppets. Of course it is.
Delightfully happy puppets.
But here's but he doesn't have, he could do it that way, but he doesn't have to. He could also make them with the free will and the memories and the experience and everything, just put it all in. Cause at least in your view, he already gave us free will, right?
Yeah.
So he could do it there too. Just make all the perfect people with the free will, give them all the memories. They won't know the difference. Give them all the experience and just pop them right there in heaven. Forget the hell thing and throw your party.
But then he made him that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
if he's already made you, the way you are, right?
Yeah.
So
he's given me options the whole time. And that's where I step back from what you're describing. And it's evidenced in that, what you might think is the mythical story of the garden. The reason the tree was there was simply for them to say, we're going to show you we love you. And we're not going to eat it. That's all it was.
Yeah, but he could take those beings all the way to the end, right?
But then the beings would never have done it themselves. They never would grow. They never would choose to love him.
Yeah, because you just add that in.
Yeah, but then you're making computers.
It's no different.
It is different.
No, it isn't. It's no different.
You might be smarter than me on this.
because he knows right when he creates Adam what's going to happen. He knows Adam's going to end up
But he didn't cause it to happen.
Yes, he does.
No, he doesn't cause it.
Did he create Adam?
He created Adam.
Did he give him his free will?
He gave him his free will.
Did he create the world? Did he create all the situations around it?
All the situations? No.
No. Who did that then?
We did.
Well, I guess the question with Adam is
when Adam did that.
Okay, so you're one step.
Can I break in with one question?
One step back. We created all the situations based on what God already set up. So it's still God's doing. Well, it's just one step away.
It's one step away, but that one step's a big step. I mean, when he sets it up,
it's still God's step, though. I mean, I know you're saying it's based on the way we move throughout the world, but that's all still known to God, and that's all still created by what He set up in the very beginning before He ever set Adam on.
But His knowing does not make us do. His knowing does not make us do.
No, it doesn't make us do it, but he already knows the results. So he could just build it as it should be.
Right. But there's something in human beings created in his image to make the choice. There's something in that.
He could put that in the end result.
And then you have robots.
Well, you have robots now.
No, you don't.
Well, the Mormon church is kind of robots. I would agree.
Okay, okay,
Okay, go ahead.
Can I ask my question?
Yeah.
Did Adam have knowledge of evil?
You know what? That's a great question. Before they took the fruit, there was no fall, right?
There's no fall, so that's why you know where I'm going with it, obviously.
Yeah. So, of course, they did evil before they fell. So that the need for Satan is really overestimated here. Eve and Adam fell before they fell.
Well, I guess my question is, without the knowledge of evil or doing bad, how could they have known the outcome of what they were going to do?
They didn't know the outcome. I don't think they knew the outcome. They were told the outcome.
So how can they be punished if they don't know they're doing bad?
They were punished for not choosing to listen to the Father. They were punished for that. Well, but they didn't know the outcome. They were told the outcome. They didn't understand it, I guess. Mm. You know.
Well, but that goes back to God being a despot then, right? Because He said, "Don't do this."
Yes.
Because if you do this, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. I'm gonna create the garden. I'm gonna create the snake. I'm gonna create the apple tree. I'm gonna create the apple. And I'm gonna tell you not to do it, knowing that you're going to do it. And then I'm gonna be really fucking mad at you when you do the thing that I knew you were gonna fucking do.
He wasn't really fucking mad at him. That is not Genesis 3:7. And he was really fucking mad at them.
Yeah, no, he gave us a nice punishment of every single rest of the humans falling for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A nice kind of
everybody else is punished for something that somebody did that they had no idea what the consequences were.
But your Adam and Eve thing is a perfect microcosm for what we were talking about earlier. That whole Garden of Eden situation, he's going to put the snake there. He's going to put, just like he did with the entire world, he's going to put all these pitfalls and everything. And then there's, penalties and a party over here or whatever. So he knew what they were going to do right from the beginning before they were ever there. That's the same thing with all this. Anyways, he could have just done it, get away with the hell. It's all.
And maybe where you and I is, I just think I trust that there was something, and you can say this is me falling back into some place because I can't defend it. There was something in the purpose of us going through it. I think there has to be something in the purpose of us going through it.
Well, you have to, right? I mean,
of course, yes, I have to.
To hold the beliefs you do, you have to believe it.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, what is the purpose for you being born and going through it? Having constipation and hitting your hand with a hammer and
what is the ultimate purpose?
Yeah,
I don't think there is one.
I think purpose.
No, I don't think. I think the purpose that I live my life with is the purpose that I create, and it's to live my life fully and happily and to make other people fulfilled and happy while I'm here. I mean, I know, or well, I don't know, but I don't believe that I'm going to have any life after this one. So I make the most of the one life that I do believe I have. And I try to make myself and other people as happy as possible because that's when I feel good. It's a totally, selfish thing that I do. I'm selfishly happy and selfishly try to make other people happy because that makes me happy in return.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I admit it's a totally selfish thing, but it feels good. So I dig it. And other people seem to dig it. So,
well, I tend to believe we don't do anything but for selfish reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think there's any true altruistic act.
Yeah. Because when you do something good, it feels good to you. And that's a selfish reason for doing it. You do it because you want to feel that goodness that you get from it.
Right.
So I think everyone is innately selfish for all of our actions that we do.
I do want to add though that I think even if the primary reason in every case, which I don't think it is, but even if it was that feeling you got from giving, I still think people enjoy the joy that the people get from receiving too.
Yeah.
I think they're both there. And I think in different capacities, I think sometimes in certain situations, your primary goal is the joy of that person. But
yeah,
that's more like, with your own children kind of, I think largely, and this is a big difference from what I would have said a year or two ago, but I have a new little guy. I have a 17-year-old and a 10-month-old.
You poor man.
Yeah. No, it's fun. But yeah, I think those kinds of actions are more, what are we even talking about? Let's,
well, I have, so one of my favorite subjects and topics to talk about is hell. And I don't know if this might set us off on a whole other road, but you told me during your show that hell doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. Did hell exist at one time?
Yeah, but it's, I mean, really, truly, scripturally speaking, and any scholar would agree, it was called Sheol. It was called the covering place. It was the hidden place. And there was a paradise and there was a prison part. And the prison part's dark and ugly. And the people who are disobedient to God went there. And the people who are obedient to God went to the paradise part. But all was separated from God. It's not the fiery, burning, Augustine hell that he said all that, made it up. That was Sheol. The Jews believed in it, taught it. And that was a actual place that when Christ came, died, returned, that was done away with. That whole thing emptied out. Yeah.
So the people that were in hell, where did they go?
They went before the great white throne judgment, and they were judged according to their works. And there were those who entered into his paradise because of their labors of goodness, and there were those who went into what's called the lake of fire. Now, that's what people get the fire thing mixed up with hell, the lake of fire. But the lake of fire is simply, it says in Revelation 21 that it's in the presence of God and his angels, and Jesus is there. So,
and they're just watching everybody roast?
Just screaming and yelling. But the lake of fire was made for Satan and his angels, not for human beings. And they made it, the words in the Greek are baptizo. There's a rubbing off of their recalcitrance, their rebellion. They went before God. They were rebellious. That is done away with too. The lake of fire is over for humans. All of that stuff completed.
So, Who made the lake of fire and Satan and all of that?
Well, the story is God made Satan and he fell. Yeah. So now the question about evil in this day, people say, well, if there's no Satan, Shawn, Christians, why is there all this evil? And I think that Satan was influenced by darkness. He wasn't the author of darkness. He was a tool. And so there's always been evil, and there's always been darkness, and there's always been light. There's this eternal Star Wars battle. And, and so darkness will always prevail where light is, you know?
Why doesn't God show himself to people these days like he did in, biblical tales?
Yeah.
Why does he not appear? Why aren't there burning bushes? Why aren't there verifiable miracles happening here on earth anymore that, in the age of cell phones and videography and being able to record anything anywhere in the world now? Why is it that we don't see any of these things happening?
Well, I personally teach this. The other Christians don't agree, but I think that giving people sight like Jesus was doing. One, in that day, there was no real medical services. He was prophesied to do miracles so people would know he was the Messiah. So he's doing them, right? Today, I think the real miracle above all is, can you change a human's heart? And that's the real miracle going on with God in the world. It is not what the charlatans are claiming that, they're healing people and slapping them on the head and all that junk. I think it was for that day and age, prophesied for them to use to know who he was. They believed in him, and I think that has faded from view. People say, can they still happen? I guess. I don't know, but I don't see them. I think the miracles are when someone's heart changes and they become loving, and that, you just can't get in there and do that to somebody. That has to happen to me in a metaphysical sense. Yeah.
Well, you've been a great sport, Shawn. It's been
really fun.
Endurance right there.
I could have you. I could sit here and talk to you about this shit for the next several hours, and I still have a ton more questions.
We'll do it again.
Okay, yeah, I would love to have you back on the show sometime.
I would love to do it.
But I want to thank you ever so much for coming out here, and thank your lovely wife for being here as well.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks for throwing the stuff, some of the harder stuff, and. Good to meet all of you, and look forward to doing it again.
Yeah,
this was awesome.
That was a
Thank you
fun
so
discussion.
much.
Thank you.
This is Matt Dillahunty, and you're listening to the Godless Revolution.
So I changed my theology 1,000 times. I mean, by the time the last God I believed in, Seth, was the greatest God in the world. He was so wonderful. He agreed with everything I cared about. He was so nice. He wasn't sending anybody to hell. He wasn't responsible for any evil thing. And the problem is that I was in love with that God until I realized, of course, if God and you agree that much, it's maybe because you invented him.
If you have questions, comments, concerns, compliments, corrections, criticisms, or concepts for content, contact the show via email at godlessrebelution@gmail.com, by text or voicemail at 330-81-REBEL, or Twitter the Twatter at TGR Podcast. Thank you!
Lars Matank was a worker at the Wilhelmshaven power station in a small coastal town in Lower Saxony in northwest Germany. Lars was on vacation with 4 friends at Golden Sands, a seaside resort on the coast of the Black Sea in Bulgaria, a popular and relatively low-cost holiday destination for those in nearby European countries who want to take a break and soak up the sun. They arrived at their destination on the 30th of June 2014 after a 2-hour plane ride and checked into their hotel, the Hotel Viva Club, which is all-inclusive with food and drinks provided. The place is described as a sort of party resort popular amongst Germans. Think Ibiza. On July 6th, the trip was disturbed by an altercation between the group of German tourists and a group of locals when they had a dispute over football at the local bar named the Rock Bar. Lars went missing later that night when he was waiting for his friends to purchase food from a nearby McDonald's fast food restaurant on the way back to the hotel. His friends looked for him to no avail and eventually decided to go back to the hotel expecting him to be there. He was not. But he returned the next morning, claiming to have been accosted by a group of men that he believed were sent for him by the group they had the altercation with earlier in the night. He claimed that the group had hired a bunch of either locals or Russians to rough him up. Apparently his friends weren't convinced by the story, but let it go. Lars walked away from the beating with a ruptured eardrum and injured jaw. But where exactly was Lars Matank between waiting outside McDonald's for his friends to order and returning to the hotel in the morning? Was he unconscious? If so, for how long? Reports state that the ruptured eardrum was an injury that wouldn't allow him to fly back to Germany on schedule with his friends. Although they wanted to stay with him until he was fit to fly, Lars insisted that he was fine and that he would find a hotel and stay until he was well enough to return home. On July 7th, his friends left the hotel in one taxi and he left in another in search of medical attention. After refusing surgery, which the local doctor insisted Matank needed, he was instead prescribed antibiotics. The antibiotics were prescribed by a Dr. Boris Nujdenau, and Matank obtained the medication from a local pharmacy. He walked around the local area looking for a new place to stay and eventually decided on a place named the Hotel Color in Varna, which costs around $25 a night and is reviewed as average on TripAdvisor. One user comments that the hotel is just a 15-minute walk from the bus stop, and another describes it as a friendly family-run hotel. Some complained about the outdated interior and stained sheets. The following day, Lars started acting strangely. At 10 minutes to midnight, Lars called his mother using his cell phone and told her that he felt scared. He asked her if she would contact his bank and freeze his credit card. He also called her again at 3 a.m. and told her in a low whisper that he was hiding from a group of men who had been following him. Lars had left the hotel with his things in the middle of the night, the staff said. He texted his mother asking her what CFC 500 was. CFC 500 is the abbreviation for the antibiotics he'd been prescribed earlier for his ruptured eardrum. At 6 a.m., Lars was dropped off at the airport in a taxi. He had apparently shared the cab with another passenger after waving it down the street. They supposedly described him as having midriasis. Although most people's first thought when they hear someone has large or dilated pupils is drug use, midriasis can also be caused by trauma, including head injuries, although the trauma usually has to be quite severe. Once at the airport, he called his mother, who booked him a flight home, and advised him to drop in on the airport doctor before boarding. He still believed that the group of men were chasing him and would refuse to let him leave Bulgaria by bus or plane. Who are these four men? Do they actually exist? Lars managed to locate the airport doctor who examined him and would later describe him as being emotionally depleted. The examination was momentarily disturbed by an airport employee who wanted to chat to the doctor about doing some work on her office. This sent Lars off, and he jumped up, fleeing the airport. Eventually, he found his way out, and witnesses say he managed to climb over a fence and jump into a field on the other side. The barbed wire wrapped around the top of the fence did little to prevent his escape. No one would ever see Lars Matank again.
I'm Bryce Barkenagel. Have you ever wondered if Joseph Smith was drugging the early Mormons? Turns out it might be possible when you have a fantastic congregation that is witnessing angels floating around in the rafters and think that the temple is on fire and they're running out in the snow and writhing around on the ground naked. Yeah, as it turns out, drugs might be the best explanation. Be sure to check out my Sunstone Symposium presentation on the Joseph Smith entheogen theory by punching that into any YouTube browser. And thank you so much for checking that out, and be sure to check out the Naked Mormonism podcast. This is the Godless Rebelution.
You know, my journey through Christianity was the journey of slowly dialing down the supernatural, slowly dialing down the crazy until there was nothing left.
Thank you to everybody who has rated the show on iTunes and Stitcher and are following us on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. And to all our Patreon patrons, you make the show possible.
had a really good time talking to Shawn. I think that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it wasn't on air, but he said he'd like to come back again, and I think we definitely should have him back again sometime.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be down for that.
I should clarify right at the top of the show, Ryan jumped in and started saying stuff, and I said, speak for yourself about certain things or whatever. I don't want everyone to think that I'm like pro-organized religion, but I'm not like, if you want to believe like what Shawn believes and you guys want to get together and talk about it, and you're not trying to pass laws and you're not, hurting anybody, I don't care. Yeah, I think that's fine. Get together and do your thing, and we get together every week and do this thing. It's somewhat organized. So I don't have a problem with that. But there's still a couple of different beliefs and stuff that are in there that I think would be better off without. But
for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think I preface it with, I assume you guys would agree with me, but I don't know if I did or not.
What?
On those contexts of saying we don't like organized religions as much as saying, yeah.
Oh no! Well, I've said that for years. In fact, I said it during a show that I don't give a fuck what people believe in their own homes, churches, synagogues, temples, mosques, whatever, as long as whatever they're believing and doing doesn't harm them or other people.
Yeah.
Like, have fun, go nuts with it. Like if it makes you happy, provides fulfillment, whatever, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah. Well, I guess for the organized side of it, to me, it's the organized side, the teacher that's giving out bad information and making people do bad things because of what their organization is telling them is where I have problems.
It's the dogma, and that's my my big problem is dogma.
Yeah, my problem is dogma, and even I can hang with dogma to a point, as long as they're not forcing that on other people or trying to push that on other people.
Like how I referenced the dogma of the LDS Church and how homophobic they are.
But the reason why I fight against dogma is because it's a flawed thinking.
But even then, like, people believe all kinds of stupid shit all the time, and as long, like I say, as long as it doesn't harm them or anybody else, that's fine. But there is that nagging concern of, okay, well, you are credulous about these various beliefs that you have, and we can easily see how those would lead you to believing in other harmful things.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Like, what's the harm in believing in ghosts and psychics and whatever other bullshit? Well, people get scammed all the time. People get hurt all the time from those types of beliefs. That those beliefs are usually stacked on other beliefs, generally stemming from a religious or metaphysical belief in something that they have no proof for. And so when they're presented with something that seems illogical and impossible and supernatural, they credulously believe it as, oh, well, yes, that fits into all of these other beliefs that I have, or on top of all of these
these harmless dogmas that I had. Now you're adding harmful stuff on top of it because the thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, speaking of psychics, I can't believe fucking police forces will hire a psychic to investigate a fucking case.
Do they still do that?
I don't know if they still do it. I know they used to do it in the past. Yeah. All it does is lend credibility to something that has zero credibility, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I'm guessing that there are probably police departments around that may still do that. I haven't heard of anybody doing that for a while. I think like the last one I heard about was sometime in the 90s. But
yeah,
I'm sure it still happens. But yeah, that kind of stuff is harmful and bullshit.
Yeah.
And I like Shawn. I think he's a really nice guy.
Yeah.
Oh, he is. Yeah.
And I think it's great that he's very open and airy-fairy about a lot of the things that he believes and isn't really locked down into anything and is willing to say that he doesn't know and that he may be wrong. And I can't remember exactly what point it was that he said, okay, well, yeah, I'll change my mind on that.
Oh, it was about omni-maxing.
Yeah.
It was something about all powerful maybe, or
not to 100%, but that's why I said like a 98.
Yeah. Yeah. But, he's a guy that's impossible not to like, and, he's got a lot of good charisma and he's a sharp guy, and that was a good discussion. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I enjoyed it very much. Hopefully you all out there listening land appreciated it as well.
Yeah. Let us know if you'd like us to have him come back on and discuss more stuff with us.
Yeah. And I liked Matt's scare story.
Yeah.
The scare story. Did you like the scare story, Ron?
More of a sad story.
It was quite sad.
You thought it was sad.
I thought it was sad. Like, he didn't get to say goodbye to his mom, or he just disappeared.
Also, I'm a shitty reader, so
just
that
went
doesn't help.
bye-bye. Oh, you're
this time though. Last time was better, I think. But
like, I'm just thinking of all those cuts he had on when he was laying in the field and nobody found him.
That's very sad.
Yeah.
Makes Ron a sad panda.
Yeah, Ron is very sad panda.
Old flannel Ron.
I like my flannel.
When Sean called you Ron a couple times, at first I thought, oh, he's just playing along, and then I was like, oh no, maybe
he thinks my name is Ron.
His name is Ron. So I'm glad that you Matt stopped and was like, I just want to make sure you know.
And I'm like, I'll just roll with it.
But that'll wrap it up for the regular portion of the show this evening. We're going to move into our Patreon portion.
Patreon! Woohoo! Don't Patreon off.
Next week, we'll have another scary story and cover some more newsy things.
Yeah.
Before we go, I want to make sure that we thank our Patreon subscribers. That would be Alan Firth,
Numania,
Christy Culbuck,
Gaytheist,
Larry Wilson,
Stephen Andrews.
Let them eat koffafa, tfafifi, fiffle.
Two skeptical chaps,
Michelle Short,
Vanessa,
Free Thinker 215,
the Utah Outcast,
Janet Uter,
Marius Scott Putrakowski,
Wes Aaron,
Andrew Vodopich,
Taylor Grin,
Angelica blah, blah, blah.
Jeremy Goodson,
Brandy Hamrick,
Megan Kennedy,
Foz,
Jeff Peterson,
Jesse Pointer,
Savid Acuna,
and the Dragon. That didn't work as well as I thought it would in my head.
It wasn't terrible.
We have read these names so many times, and I'm super grateful. It's just that trying to do it differently now, I think, because...
I did two whispers. I apologize. I couldn't think of anything to spot.
You're so unoriginal.
I know.
Way to go, Ron.
Fucking Ron, fucking up everything.
Thank you all for listening. And so until next week, crucified Dallin H. Oaks.
Leave a review to achieve. Just achieve anything. Just achieve. That's it.
And run the show 5 times a day toward Mecca.
Did you want music for this or anything?
Oh, fuck. Lars Matank was a worker at the Wilhelms. I messed up already. Sorry.
No problem.
And I said it right. I just stopped saying it.
Like Wilhelm sound right. That's Germany.
Lars Matank was a worker at the Wilhelmshaven. Wilhelmshaven. Well, and it's Wilhelmshaven, and it's all one word, so it looks like Wilhelmshaven. Yeah.
Wilhelmshaven.
This is a really spooky story, you guys. It's actually not spooky. It's just like sad and creepy and weird.
Okay.
Although there was no violence inside the bar at the time, Lars went missing later that night. When he was... God damn it, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Think Ibiza. On July 6th, the trip was disturbed by an altercation between the two...
The 2 women.
It doesn't even say 2.
The 3 women who were watching football.
It doesn't even say 2. We've gotten past the shaven part.
Yeah.
Was he unconscious? If so, for how long? There are conflicting reports on the severity of the ear injury. Some reports say that he was not actually okay to fly. But, oh my god.
Hey, Dan.
Yeah.
I'm way over here.
I'm way over here, Ryan.
Yeah, I think Matt fucked up again.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'll start this stuff over again.
Sorry.
Okay.
I thought I would give you like one sentence, but I was already in the middle of it by the time I motioned, so... Damn it, I keep fucking up words.
Are we recording?
Are we recording?
Is it reverbing?
Does it sound godly?
Verburbing? Is it recording the verburban?
Is it verburban?
Verboten for bourbon.
If ever verboten for burden.
Like whiskey, you should try our Verbourbon.
Verbourbon verboten verboten.
Babiba babad. Badinua.
We're going to start speaking in tongues.
But if you talk a little softer with it, it makes your voice seem a little more mysterious. Fucked up.
Makes me kind of...
I'd like to welcome you all here today, brothers and sisters.
And we can...
For a little chat about Jesus's.
I'll try to read this stupid damn thing.
We're just going to be in the shadows over on this side of the room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Watch out for the Russian sleep experiment, guys.
Okay. You cool over there, bro?